Hello, hello. Sorry, I am a little bit late because I'm really struggling with technology this week. I don't know what it is, but technology and I are not getting along, and I'm still not live in the right place. I don't think. I don't understand. This is telling me that I'm live. But then I go to the group to see if I'm live in the group, and I'm not live in the group. So I don't understand. I just don't understand this. This has been happening to me every day. Well, yesterday and today. Okay, it looks like I am live in the right spot. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was in the right place. Sorry, I'm a little bit late again, guys. I've been really fighting with technology over here. Nothing is going my way. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. We're going to explore the fascinating role of witches as symbols of rebellion and of female empowerment throughout history. Let me just take a moment and make sure everything is as it should be. Find out how I can... How am I supposed to do that? I'm just trying to figure out how to get this to do what I had it doing yesterday. Okay. I think I got it. There we go. Yep. Okay. Hi, guys. How's it going? Come on in. Say hi. Let me know who's hanging out with me tonight. Sorry about my punctuality. I've been having some real serious issues with tech, and I'm just going to pretend I'm not as frustrated as I am. So, welcome to day 2 of Magic Through Time, Unraveling the Mystery of the Witch Archetype. We're going to explore the fascinating role of witches as symbols of rebellion and female empowerment throughout history. So, there we go. Now I know where I am. There we go. So, witches often were depicted as powerful and mystical beings, and they have captured our imagination collectively and left a mark on our collective consciousness. So, in numerous cultures and time periods, witches have emerged as figures of resistance, challenging societal norms, and empowering women in the face of opposition. Let us embark on a journey to understand the significance of witches as a symbol of rebellion and female empowerment throughout history. So, as everyone knows, throughout the last 2,000 to 3,000 years, women have faced various types of limitations and restrictions on their autonomy, and this was influenced by deeply ingrained patriarchal systems. These limitations and restrictions have manifested in different forms across different cultures and time periods. But here are a few examples of what I'm talking about. Legal and political limitations. So women have often been denied the right to own property, to inherit land, or participate in political decision-making processes. They were often excluded from voting rights, holding public office. There we go. That's the right one. Participating in legal proceedings, their voices and opinions were disregarded, and their agency in matters of governments was limited or non-existent. So, educational and intellectual restrictions were placed on women, often denied access to education or limited to receiving an inferior education comparative to men. Restricted careers, occupations, roles beyond the domestic sphere. occupational and economic constraints, so confined to specific occupations and industries, subjected to unequal pay and discriminatory labor practices. Now, that may not happen as much now, but it has been something that's happened throughout history in certain times and places. Limited reproductive rights, so restrictions on autonomy, which includes limited access to reproductive health care, decisions about their own bodies. We all know this song and dance. Another one is violence and discrimination. So women have been subjected to various forms of violence, including physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. Discrimination based on gender has perpetuated a culture of inequality and definitely contributed to the marginalization of women in society, which has resulted in diminished opportunities, restricted mobility, and limited access to resources and services. Now, it's important to note that the extent and the nature of these limitations and restrictions have absolutely varied across time and space, so cultures, and even in socioeconomic contexts. So the point is that the underlying thread of gender inequality and the suppression of women's autonomy has persisted throughout history. I don't know how these got out of order. I'll just go back. So recognizing and challenging limitations and restrictions has been critical for women's empowerment and how we are attempting to create a more equitable society. So in this, through advocacy, education, and the dismantling of patriarchal systems, that progress can be made. That's how we're making progress. This ensures that women have the freedom to live authentic and self-determined lives, just like men. And today, you see that more than you don't see it, for sure. But witches and their association with magic, intuition, and connection to nature have offered a way for women to reclaim their power and assert their agency. So by embracing the witch archetype, women are more able to challenge societal expectations and step into roles that have been traditionally denied to them. There we go. From ancient pagan traditions to the witch hunts of the Middle Ages, witches have symbolized a rebellion against societal norms and a defiance of oppressive structures. In pagan cultures, wise women, priestesses, and healers held positions of reverence and authority. Where are they? There they are. Often they were regarded as intermediaries between the divine and the mortal realms. So their various practices of herbalism and divination and spiritual rituals empowered them to guide and nurture their communities. However, with the rise of religious institutions, perception of witches began to shift. During the Middle Ages, witches were increasingly demonized and portrayed as threats to the established order. Their association with nature-based practices, folk magic, and healing traditions became conflated with devil worship and heresy. Ironically, it was precisely this demonization that fueled the empowerment of witches as symbols of resistance. Women who refused to conform to societal expectations, who embraced their intuition and spiritual connection, became labeled as witches. And it was through this label that they found a sense of identity, a kind of solidarity, to stand together in the face of persecution and oppression. So the witch archetype represented a challenge to the status quo, defying the prescribed roles of women and embracing their own power. They were often seen as outsiders, living on the margins of society, but their strength and resilience in the face of adversity inspired others to question the prevailing norms and to seek their own paths of empowerment. In more recent times, the witch archetype has experienced a resurgence as a symbol of feminine empowerment and liberation. We live in a world where we're still grappling with gender inequality, which is served today as a potent reminder of the strength, wisdom, and resilience inherent in every woman. The witch represents the rebellious spirit that refuses to be silenced, the intuition that dares to challenge the conventional wisdom, and the connection to nature and the divine that transcends societal boundaries. As we discuss this history, I just wanted to remind us to remember that this story of the witch is not just about persecution, but also about courage, resilience, and empowerment. So, by exploring the role, the symbol of female empowerment can draw inspiration from the legacy of the witch archetype, and it can continue the work of challenging societal norms. And I think it is, to this day, probably doing so in a more powerful way than ever. Teaching women to embrace their own power, fostering power, and in a world where it's actually possible for women to rise and thrive. The image of the witch has undergone remarkable transformation over time and became a symbol of liberation and self-discovery in the resurgence of feminine power. So, one of the key influences that shapes this contemporary understanding of witches is the feminist movement, with its focus on challenging gender inequalities and claiming women's voices and reclaiming women's voices. Feminism has embraced the archetype of the witch as a powerful symbol of female empowerment. By embracing the qualities traditionally associated with witches, such as intuition, independence, connection to nature, feminists have sought to reclaim their own power and challenge patriarchal structures. So, but it's not just that. In parallel to this feminist movement, the rise of neo-paganism and the modern practice of Wicca have also played a significant role in shaping the understanding of the witch. Neo-paganism draws inspiration from ancient spiritual traditions, often rooted in nature worship and reverence for the divine feminine. So, within that framework, witches are seen as practitioners of ancient wisdom, connecting with the cycles of nature and honoring the divine in all of its forms. Wicca, a modern pagan religion, has gained popularity for its celebration of witchcraft as a sacred practice. Wiccans view witches and priestesses and priests who commune with the divine and work with natural energies for healing, for manifestation, and for spiritual growth. Wicca promotes personal empowerment, ethical living, and reverence for nature, aligning closely with feminist values and the reclaiming of ancient wisdom, which you see everywhere now. The reclaiming of ancient wisdom. It's very prevalent. So this association between the witch and feminism, between the witch and spiritual empowerment, and the reclaiming of this ancient wisdom, it has had a profound impact on our modern interpretation of the witch archetype. It's provided a framework for individuals, particularly women, some men, but particularly women, to explore their own spirituality and to reconnect with the natural world and to embrace their own innate power, which is what the patriarchal society took away from women and what the religious movements took away from people in general. Their allowing people to embrace their own innate power. Most major religions tend to take people's innate personal power away from them. Maybe not directly, but it sure does not foster innate power or highlight the innate power, personal power that a human has. Everything is focused on the outside. In this understanding, witches are seen as catalysts for personal transformation, for healing, and even for societal change. So they are inspiring. They inspire individuals to embrace their intuition, to trust their inner wisdom, and to stand up for their rights and for the rights of others. The archetype of the witch reminds us that power comes from within, and that spirituality can be found in everyday life, and that our connection to the natural world is essential for our well-being and the well-being of the planet. As we continue along this journey exploring the association of witches with feminism, spiritual empowerment, and the reclaiming of ancient wisdom, I invite you to celebrate the diversity of interpretations and practices that have emerged in time. I honor the many paths that individuals have taken to connect with their inner witch and to embrace their unique spiritual journey. And this is why I do the work that I do today. This is why witchcraft calls to me and has always called to me. And this is the reason why I think it's important to wake the witch in every woman. The archetype of the witch continues to inspire us and challenge to us to embrace our own power, to strive for a world where all beings are honored and respected. I hope we can continue to reclaim this ancient wisdom, to nurture our connection to nature, and empower ourselves and others on this sacred path of self-discovery and spiritual growth. Throughout history, and across cultures and time, witchcraft practices have displayed remarkable diversity, emphasizing individual empowerment and a deep connection with nature. Witches have found their own unique paths, reflecting the rich tapestry of human experience. One of the striking aspects of witchcraft is this adaptability and flexibility. While certain common threads run through the various traditions, each and every practitioner of the craft brings their own interpretation, their own rituals and symbols into their craft. This diversity reflects the individuality and the personal empowerment at the core of witchcraft, which reminds us that the answers we seek are within, and that someone outside of us telling us what our spiritual practice should look like is not the way. We should always rely on the answers that are inside, the answers that are within. I love how witchcraft celebrates autonomy of the practitioner, encouraging them to explore their own intuition, their own beliefs, create their own magical practices. It's a deeply personal path where people are empowered to forge their own spiritual connections and create their own rituals. Whether it's through spell casting or divination or herbalism or energy work or others, I believe that what witches seek is to harness their own innate power and create positive change in their lives and in the world around them. And that's what this is about, right? That's what Awaken Her Magic is about. It's about being able to use your innate power and your intention to create the world outside of you according to your desires and your wishes and your values, instead of letting the world, the life that you live, be led by circumstances outside of yourself. Now, we never have full control. We're only co-creators with the divine, with God, with source, whatever you may call it. But we have a lot more control than we were ever told. And so I feel like the connection to nature is another fundamental thing about witchcraft that we need to point out here. As witches, we honor the cycles of the seasons, the energy of the earth, and the interdependence of all living beings, how we're all connected. Nature is seen as a source of wisdom because it is. Nature is seen as a source of healing and spiritual nourishment too. See, witches work with elements, plants, animals, celestial energies. But the thing is they are recognizing the inherent magic, that interconnectedness of the natural world. So they are recognizing how we are all interdependent. All life is interdependent here on Earth. So back to symbolism. The symbolism of witches often are associated with the rebellion against societal norms and empowerment, like we said. So let's talk a little bit about some of the familiar ones. The broomstick, for example, historically has been associated with both domesticity. I can't speak today, apparently. I can't say that word. Domesticity and liberation. It represents the ability to sweep away the old and make way for new, as well as the freedom to explore new realms. The cauldron's another one, potent symbol, often associated with transformation and the brewing of potions and spells. But what it represents deeply is the power of creation. It is the ability to harness the energies of the universe for manifestation and for positive change. The pentacle, another popular one, another familiar five-pointed star with a circle, symbolizes the balance of the elements and the spiritual connection to the divine. It represents the integration of earthly and spiritual energies, reminding the practitioners of their inherent power and how we're all connected, how all things are connected through the earth, the air, the fire, the water, and source energy, your spirit. Everything works together as one. So it is important to point out that the symbols and practices and beliefs of witchcraft really vary very greatly depending on cultural and individual context. From traditional European witchcraft to African diasporic traditions, Native American spirituality to modern eclectic practices that you'll see with neo-pagans today. Witches in general draw inspiration from diverse sources, and most honor their ancestral roots. So the diversity of the practices really underscore that emphasis on individual empowerment and connection to nature. I think that it's obvious that maybe it's not obvious to everyone, but it's obvious to me that most witches, they embrace their own unique paths. And it's a celebration of their own autonomy, their intuition, and their personal power. And that they use the rituals, the symbols, and the practices to rebel against societal norms. But not just as to rebel, to reclaim feminine empowerment. It's a rich tapestry, the traditions of witchcraft. But they serve as a testament to the creativity, the resilience, and the spiritual wisdom of women throughout history and across the world. This journey of the witch archetype spans across centuries and continents. evolving and adapting in various cultural and historical contexts. From ancient pagan traditions to modern interpretations, the perception of witches has been a complex tapestry of reverence, of fear, and of empowerment. In ancient pagan traditions, the witches were revered as wise ones, as wise women, as priestesses, there you go, and as healers. Their practices were rooted in a deep understanding of the natural world and its rhythms, in cultures such as Mesopotamia and Egypt and Greece. The association with wise women and the reverence for their magical abilities shaped the early understanding of witches. So in many pagan cultures, wise women, priestesses, and healers held significant reverence and authority. Wise women were often referred to as crones or seers, but respected for their deep knowledge and understanding of the natural world. So they were herbalists. They possessed wisdom passed down throughout generations, and they were sought after for their guidance, their divination skills, and their power to counsel their communities in matters of personal and spiritual importance. Priestesses held prominent roles within religious and spiritual practices of ancient pagan cultures. They served as intermediaries between the mortal and divine realms, conducting rituals, ceremonies, and sacred rites. They were often associated with specific deities and had deep knowledge of mythology, astrology, divination. Their authority extended beyond the spiritual realm because they often played important roles in education and in governance and sometimes in cultural preservation. And then you have the healer. Healers, including shamans, medicine women, and midwives, were revered for their ability to harness natural energies, to commune with spirits, and to facilitate natural, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being. They used various techniques such as energy work, herbal remedies, ritual purification, and trance states. But their purpose was to bring balance and restoration to individuals and communities. Healers were held in high esteem. In these ancient pagan cultures, the reverence and authority led by wise women, priestesses, and healers were rooted in the understanding that they possessed specialized knowledge, spiritual gifts, and a deep connection to the divine. Their roles were essential for the well-being of the community. Their guidance, their healing abilities were sought after and respected. It's important to note that the level of reverence and authority really varied across different cultures and time periods. Some societies held women in higher regard than others. Some subjected them to marginalization and persecution, like we talked about earlier. The legacy of the wise woman, the priestess, and the healer in the ancient pagans' cultures serves as a testament to the inherent power, wisdom, and sacredness of women and their connection to the spiritual and natural realms. As societies changed and religious dynamics shifted, the perception of witches took a darker turn. During the transition to the medieval era in Europe, witchcraft became associated with worship of devil, and the influence of Christianity, with its emphasis on orthodoxy and the suppression of pagan beliefs, led to the demonization of witches, which brought on the witch hunts of the Middle Ages and the early modern period. Despite the persecution, the archetype of the witch endured, and in some cases transformed into symbols of rebellion and empowerment. During the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, there was a resurgence of interest in witchcraft. It was a little bit more interest in scholarly and intellectual, in a scholarly or intellectual way, writers and thinkers. They wanted to understand the practices of witches and explore their connections. I think that the reverence, the fear, and the empowerment associated with witches has really evolved over time. It's been influenced by society, by intellectual movements, by religious movements, but witches continue to be a source of inspiration and empowerment, embodying the resilience, the wisdom, and the connection to nature that have characterized their archetype throughout history. I invite you to reflect on the rich tapestry of the witch archetype and its evolution throughout history. This is a journey filled with diverse cultural, historical contexts, from ancient pagan traditions to modern interpretations. By exploring the varied perceptions and experiences of witches, we gain a deeper understanding of the complexities surrounding this archetype. I encourage you to explore your own, to continue your personal exploration and appreciation of the witch archetype. There are fascinating stories and of different cultures and societies. There are unique ways in which the witches have been revered throughout time, feared throughout time, have empowered throughout time. I feel like we should all be expanding our knowledge of the diverse practices, rituals, and beliefs that shape the archetype of the witch across time and culture. Or at least we should be looking into it before we demonize the witch, before we look down on someone else for practicing witchcraft. Embracing the archetype, we can tap into our own personal power, our own healing abilities, our own spiritual connection. We too can find empowerment in our connection to nature and the natural cycles of life. Through rituals, through spells, through practices that resonate with us individually, we can cultivate our own personal power and awaken the wisdom that lies within. That's why it's time to wake the witches. That's what Awaken Her Magic is about. And so we celebrate the archetype of the witch as a symbol of resilience, independence, and the reclamation of ancient wisdom. I thank you so much for joining me today. I will be live at 6 o'clock tomorrow. Hopefully at 6 o'clock on the dot tomorrow. I'm getting better at this every time I do it. I'm getting better at sharing my screen and getting online faster. And so I will be back tomorrow to finish up. It should be less than an hour, probably about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, all said and done. And if anyone's hanging out live and would like to do a meditation immersion journey tomorrow, when I finish off the about 15 minutes-ish of the rest of my presentation, I would love to, lead you all on a little journey, a little meditation immersion, to see if we can't help you unleash a little bit of your inner witch. Thanks again for joining me. I hope you all have a wonderful evening.